Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully next few days. Today is Wednesday, December 21st, halfway through the week, halfway through the trading cycle. And currently, Bitcoin is still bearish, a bit worse off than it was yesterday. Tweet volume is down. Trading volume is down both by over 20%. Not looking very positive, even with equities getting a bit of a boost this morning. Ethereum sentiment just dipping into that bullish territory, something we definitely wanted to see, but trading volume is still down, and so is tweet volume by a magnitude of more than 30%. So very interesting to see that. Hourly sentiment definitely signaled, a bit of the boost that we already had, but it looks to be waning. Daily sentiment, I'm not sure if it's going to be able to stay above the 50 level for long, but we'll definitely continue to monitor that and maybe, looking for, long tail, or looking for short-term entry, Ethereum shorts, maybe not the best decision. But, with Bitcoin looking bearish and that more or less moving the market independently, definitely put a little bit more weight on Bitcoin as we have done for since we've been doing the show. So moving forward, looking at the dollar index, very important to notice that we're breaking above the downtrend yet again. This is our more or less 1, 2, 3, 4 really fourth attempt, third really solid attempt at breaking higher. Looking at our RSI trend that we've been tracking daily, it caught on the lower bound of the trend. So you want to both see RSI move higher as well as DXY, and of course we have resistance at 105.3. If you can flip that, then things head higher. And as we've been preaching on this show, if DXY heads higher, risk will head lower. If DXY heads lower, risk will head higher. And we are still, basically of that mindset. We've been in a bit of a holding pattern here, but, volatility will likely come at some point soon. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, but it's, it looks like it'll be delivered on a silver platter at some point. And then, that will be a major risk signal. But right now, the prediction looks like DXY will head higher. Of course, we'll have to wait to see what happens with that. Now, for equities, we kind of zoom out a little bit, get a bit better of a wider picture. You can see that when we spoke yesterday, definitely mentioned the idea that prices could certainly move up towards 3870, all the way potentially up to 3900. I was a bit more bearish yesterday when we spoke, and we did move down. We did end up, catching off that VWAP and moving higher. Coincidentally, crypto has not really moved higher in line with this pattern. Crypto has flatlined, so that's very interesting to see. Weakness compared to crypto could just be a delay as well. But looking at equities, we obviously above the resistance, which was marked by the low from December 15th, and we're now trying to, or I guess equities are trying to flip this resistance into support. You can some wicking action here. It's it's hovering around that 38.75 number. Bulls want to see this 38.5 number catch, flip to supports, and then you can talk about 3900 again. And I think this is where you'll see a solid amount of resistance. Definitely seeing some resistance here, as we can see. There's a gap kind of where I outlined. That's obviously the 200 moving average. Liquidity is the word that I'm looking for, is lining up, just above current price, right around that 38.94 level. So definitely expecting that to play a role in price action. It could act as a magnet or as resistance, and clearly it is acting as resistance. So we'll have to see if we get another tag on that level. If we do get another tag on that level, definitely likely for potential double top, or some sort of divergence forming at this level. Potentially price creeps a little bit higher, RSI ends up being slightly lower. So in that scenario, let's say price makes it to that 38.94 level here, but RSI only makes it to, let's say 76.77. which would then form bearish divergence because your price is rising where your RSI is decreasing. So definitely something to look out for there. I'm, even with this boost and with what's going on in the macro cycle, I'm still not very bullish. We are, from what I can read on the crypto side of things, we're being very driven by the perpetuals, meaning futures, synthetics, not real spot assets. And you really want to see these things supported by spot drives, spot purchases, to continue moving higher and build momentum. And I think that's the main reason why crypto is stalled. Clearly we've got some volume and interest on equities, but how long does that last, as we near resistance? And I think, although if, I would have taken a short on equities yesterday, I would have been quite long. I'm still going to be in the camp that it's best to look for shorts as opposed to longs, as I don't really see any real bullish catalyst. But the one thing that I will note, in that we've discussed multiple times this week, is that we have real GDP data tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. And then we have PCE data on Friday at 8:30 a.m. as well. Real GDP data is GDP with or factored for inflation. So, how much do GDP metrics change when we supplement recent inflation into them? You want, obviously, GDP to stay steady or end up higher. So that'll definitely be a big number tomorrow, but I think the larger number will definitely be PCE, because that is an inflation metric. Although it's not the tip-top one, it does directly pertain to consumers. Will be interesting to see, what it looks like going into the end of the year. And of course, if it's positive, then we could see a bit of a bullish pop from the markets from that. So, let's say real GDP comes in lower because inflation was, quite annoying still. I mean, it's still hovering around 7% in the US. Markets drop lower, maybe back to supports, and then we have a little bit of a boost, from a good PCE print. Inverse, we could continue higher on a good GDP print and then end up suffering on PCE. But because real GDP is factoring in inflation, I have a feeling that these data points will end up coming in somewhere along the line, supporting each other. So if real GDP is down, I would expect potentially PCE to be higher. If real GDP ends up higher, I would maybe predict PCE to be lower, but we'll have to see how that data comes in. I'm not ready to really make that long of a prediction, and I certainly will not be trading the immediate reactions because I don't have a good read. But, both important things to consider. So looking at Bitcoin, knowing that we're at resistance on equities, we could definitely continue higher. There's some data in front of us that could definitely impact price action. What does Bitcoin look like? So, interestingly enough, we talked, and maybe I can zoom out and give a similar picture. Before the recent dip, I was talking about how Bitcoin and other crypto assets were looking like they kind of rolled over up here, and we're kind of looking the same. Not exactly, but big wick above, clear out that liquidity, haven't made it above that price action, or haven't closed above that price action, which is 16.9. And then we've just been trickling lower. So could this be a bull flag? Certainly, it could definitely be a bull flag. We've got, some testing liquidity down here, testing liquidity up here. We've been stuck in this range. So certainly could be a bull flag. But, it does seem to be forming a bit of the same pattern that we saw up here, without really, of course, there was no deviation there, but without, being extremely oversold. We had a big spike first, second spike, and then we've just been trickling lower. Obviously, haven't broken beneath that support level, or haven't closed beneath the support level of, 16.8 really is that number, 16.780 to be exact. So close beneath that would be quite bearish. But until we close beneath 16.8 or above 16.9, there is no trend to follow. We are obviously stuck in a range and have been since yesterday. So we'll have to see how this plays out. Zooming in a little bit, looking at the 1 hour RSI, we can see we've been continually rejected at this. If price can get, or if RSI can get above this trend, that would definitely be bullish. And of course, if it continually gets rejected, then we're talking about tagging these support levels. Of course, we know 16.7 is below the support level of 16.8, and then 16.5 is below the level of 16.7. And of course, we have that recent low around 16.3, 16.4. So if equities continue higher, one might surmise that Bitcoin will end up continuing higher, flip this level to supports, and move in that fashion. But we still have DXY to continue to look out for, and equities are definitely getting a bit winded up here. If we confirm a few candles back beneath 38.75, that'll be deviation, which would definitely not be positive for price action, especially at an oversold point with no real fundamental catalyst to keep it higher. So if equities can somehow recover, Bitcoin maybe breaking above the range and moving higher. If equities fail here, end up deviating, move back down lower towards their previous range, then Bitcoin will probably end up playing these levels pretty cleanly and pretty perfectly throughout the next day or so. Looking at Ethereum, a little bit cleaner and easier to read, just straight up resistance right here. We've got two events in which it tried to break higher, technically deviation, very weak in my opinion though. We've got support sitting down here at 1200 in my opinion. I guess you could also look at support at 1205, but real support to me is right here at 1200. If equities continue higher and recover somehow, maybe we get above 1220 and move higher. And of course, if 1205 fails, we're at 1200. And if 1200 fails, then we're likely heading lower back towards that 1170 number, back in this range. And then this entire movement would just be deviation back in this range. See how that would work. So my feelings are bearish. I definitely had a short last night that was short-lived. I'd like to get back into another short soon. I am feeling bearish, especially if equities close and continue back in this trend. You're probably headed back towards 38.50, if not 38.40. And if that's the case, then maybe Bitcoin is still hovering in this range, but I would think that Bitcoin and Ethereum would at least drop to the low end of where they've been recently trading, which would be 16.7 for Bitcoin and 1200 for ETH, and potentially lower depending on general weakness from equities and potential strength that crops up from DXY. So I think this is definitely still our biggest wild card. Still monitoring this, haven't seen much change, but this does look a bit like a reversal pattern in my eyes, especially given the RSI trend that we're seeing. So my feelings are bullish dollar index, bearish risk assets, and we will have to see if I am correct. Crypto has not moved much since yesterday. Had a good short opportunity and looking for more moving forward. So good luck, happy trading. Speak to everybody tomorrow.